Welcome to Made for Mondays, the source for digging a little deeper into the Believers Church Sunday messages and finding ways to apply them to our daily lives. Together, let's take a deeper look and find a way to bring Mondays back to life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pod. My name is Heather, and who is with me today?
My name is Doug. Very excited to be here today.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi, I'm RaChelle.
And I'm Joe. Happy to be here.
Very good. So, what did you guys do with your 4th of July weekend? We haven't seen each other. Well, we saw each other on Sunday, but we weren't in the office on Thursday. So, what'd you all do this weekend?
My weekend was pretty cool. Our kids were in Alabama visiting family. So me and Rachel just had the house to ourselves. So it was just kind of relaxing and chill. We went tubing over the weekend. Or not over the weekend, over the week. We went tubing on Wednesday and Thursday. And then got back Friday and just, it was cool.
Where did you do that? Up in Richmond?
Yeah, Richmond.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was super fun. And the river was kind of like a little bit higher, so the water was a little faster. So some of the rapids were like, actually, we came up on them, and we're in these like little tubes. Like, we're not in like a whitewater rafting kind of thing. It's a small tube. And we came up on these rapids. I was like, oh no, like these things are moving faster than I thought, and we were okay. But there's that sudden moment of, we have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. But it was super fun. We had a good time.
Yeah. Was it just y'all, or did you go with friends?
Yeah, just me and her.
Oh, fun.
My biggest concern was getting sunburn, and I did not get burned at all. I had a big old hat and tons of sunscreen. It was great.
Nice.
Very good.
Very fun.
It's important.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You guys, what'd you do?
We every year my aunt has a big party out in the Hickory area, so we look forward to that, and it's a bunch of family, and had a good time. We got to stay longer this year because Nora's getting older, so we got to stay for a while, and that was fun. Friday had plans with some friends, went out and had a good time. So Saturday the weather kind of messed up some plans, and at that point I wasn't even mad at it.
Yeah.
Just sit in the house and do nothing at that point.
And it was so hot.
It was so hot.
It was so hot. Yeah.
I had a very successful being a fish weekend.
Okay,
I feel
good.
like I was in the water every day. We did Thursday pool with mom and little lunch cookout. I made some barbecue tofu, and it was fantastic. It was
good.
Every
Yum.
piece got eaten.
That's good.
I know.
Sounds amazing.
Look, don't knock the
It probably
tofu
tasted
till
a
you
lot
try
like
it.
barbecue. Yeah,
It was really good. And then we did the fireworks with my dad at his place. They did like a big firework display in his neighborhood, and the cops got called. I was so bummed. So we still had like a good 45-minute show, but we had heard talk about neighborhood chatter and issues before, and it ended up happening, and it was such a bummer. I was like, it's the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Just get over it. It's the day, the one day. But then the next day we spent the day at the beach with friends, and then the next day we had basketball, and then spent the day at the beach. So yeah, we were just being little mermaids and fishies.
And shout out to Jerry.
It's great.
RaChelle doesn't have any social media, but Jerry posted some great pictures. Oh my gosh, there's one of you and the boys in the pool.
Yeah.
It was so good.
We
Such
had
a good picture.
so much fun.
Yeah.
I just love being in the water with
that's
all my,
so
my
good.
fam.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had family that came up from Greenville, and so we had family around for the weekend, and we got to go down to spend some time with friends in the Outer Banks for one day, so that was good. But yeah, it was just so hot, and then there was threats of rain and stuff on Saturday, so we had plans to have a party that we've done for years and years, but then we canceled it. But then rain didn't actually happen, and but then I was like, I actually don't even mind.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have, even with the heat, I don't think it would have been good to be outside anyway. So anyway, it ended up being a good weekend, I think, for everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was good.
So we've been doing our usual Bible reading challenge, and we just started off in Luke last week, so we are in Luke 2 and 3 this week. Did you guys have anything that stood out to you from chapters 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you want to talk about specific names? Because there were lots of names.
Lots of names.
This week. Lots and lots of names in chapter 3. No, just kidding. I'm sure that's not what you want to talk
It's
about.
funny. I was actually listening to it over the weekend because I'll read it and then listen to it as well, just because I like to see the way people pronounce things.
Yeah.
And it got to the genealogy.
Yeah.
And he was reading it, and I think it felt like it took him like 10 minutes to read through all the names. And he said every single thing the same, like son of this, and son of this. And it was like, man, he was so committed to it. And I really appreciated like his, I guess, excellence in even reading a genealogy.
Right.
But then he got to the very end, and then he said, Adam, the son of God. And I was like, oh, cool. It was like a really good end. It made sitting through it like way worth it.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about even this last week in our Sunday planning meeting how some of the students have said they just want to learn how to pronounce all of the names in the Bible. So, like, that's good. You should just tell them to listen to someone reading the Bible, and that would be a good way for them to,
that's so
do
helpful.
that. Yeah.
And I just hope that guy's doing it right, because I'm going to do it like he did it.
Yeah, there you go.
I trust him.
Yeah.
But I was reading, and I love, try to see around the microphone here. I love when they're kind of on this journey, and it seems like they have this big festival they're going to, and on the way back they lose Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's always like a funny thing for me to read, because I'm like, oh, they lost Jesus. Oh no, that's horrible. But I like the idea and the context around it. Like, I was reading this commentary, and it said that the amount of people that would have been traveling would have been like overwhelming. Like this town, I think the town held like 25,000 people, and the amount of people traveling would have been like 4 or 5 times that many.
Yep.
So it would have been way overcrowded.
Yeah.
And they traveled in big groups of people just for companionship, but also safety. So this is not like Mary and Joseph and Jesus traveling by themselves.
Right.
It's like hundreds of people.
Masses.
Yeah.
Of
And they
people.
would have trusted, like, you know, Jesus isn't right by my side, but there's a good chance he's with somebody. He's protected. He's okay.
with family and
Yeah.
friends. It's good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they didn't see him for the first day on the way back, and that's why.
Yeah.
They're not like
Yeah.
neglectful parents. It's just they were trusting the community, and Jesus decided to stay back and teach in the synagogue and all that, which is very cool too.
I have more empathy now for Home Alone.
Right. You're like,
The first Home Alone.
this is a remake.
I've seen this before.
This is an original storyline.
I can see like Mary too, just like she's walking and she's like, "Did we forget something? I got my wallet,
Right.
my purse."
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Something that also stuck out to me from that particular part of the reading was when he's reunited with his parents. And I've always thought of him as being like this kind of snarky, rude kid when he's like, what, you didn't know I was in my father's house?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is just rude. But then the follow-up after it talks about how then he went in their home and he obeyed, and he was perfect. You know, he had perfection even in the way that he honored his parents.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
good.
don't hear that pointed out a lot. So I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah, it says like he found favor with his parents and with God.
Yes.
So like it was, but in our humanity, I've read it that way too. Like in our humanness, we just read it like, he was like this bratty kid that was,
Right.
it was like, obviously this is where I was.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm pretty sure that's not how he responded to them.
Because
Yeah.
my kids have said that before. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
why isn't your room clean? I've been cleaning my room all day. Wait a second, where's this coming from?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a verse stick out to me early in chapter 2, and if you'll indulge me for a second, it had to do with some things that happened yesterday. So for those of you that don't know, I was on stage for the first time with a microphone yesterday. So in run through, I completely blanked, and the enemy just started jumping all over me. And I look in and I'm like, I have 45 minutes. And I'm in a spot right now wondering if I can even do this. And usually the emotions don't overwhelm me that much. And, you know, I'm kind of just wandering around. I go into an empty office. I'm like, I shouldn't be reading this anymore. I'm prepared. I know this. And what I saw, how the people helped me backstage. Because at that point, I'm like, I wasn't out in the comments. I just went backstage, and shout out to the band and the production team. They were just like my biggest cheerleaders, helping me through all of it. But then Doug, I wanted to really thank you for the words you gave me yesterday. I know I didn't want to bother you because you were in this mode looking over your sermon, but man, you really, really helped me get out of this funk, get the enemy off my back, and made it so much easier on me yesterday. So that reminded me of in verse 19, I stopped it for a second because it was so short. And I'm like, sometimes the scripture, you wonder, like, is this even fitting in the whole context? It said, but Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. So in the context, Jesus was just born, so there's a lot of commotion, but these are all good things. And what does she do? Like, I'm a talker. Like, I would have been just talking and chit-chatting with everybody like I was yesterday afterwards about being on stage and everything. And I read this last night, and I'm like, man, I sat back for a second and just started to see the conversation we had, the conversations with the band members and stuff like that as treasures. And like I sat and pondered in what Jesus did.
That's good.
Not in like some of the negative that I had.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really good,
That's
Joe.
good. Yeah, that was good.
I'm so
That was
glad
good.
you had that experience.
Yeah, because you're right. I think this could have been like a anxious moment for Mary. Like she lost her kid and all the things and all the commotion around all that anyway. So you're right. Like I think she could have allowed that to become like a moment where she was angry or upset or like even doubting herself as a mother. But yeah, the fact that it says she cherished that, like she was able to see the good, positive aspects of that.
Yeah.
So that's so important.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very good. Lots of good stuff.
So I mentioned earlier that I had a nightmare.
Oh, yes.
Saturday
You said you
night.
wanted to tell us about it.
Yeah, so and I think it plays on this too, like the whole idea of anxiety, right? Being anxious on stage and being anxious that like my biggest fear is that I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah.
Like if somebody sends you a text message that says like, where are you at? My anxious kind of mind and heart starts saying like, where should I be right now? Because it's not here. And did I forget about an appointment or something?
Yeah.
So I had a dream Saturday night. So Brent Hall led worship for us at our most recent rally night for high school, and he did an amazing job. And he was such a he's such a good friend and such a cool guy. He came and led worship. So I had a dream that I was supposed to preach at his church on Sunday. It was almost like hey, I led worship for you. Will you preach at my church? I said, sure. So in this dream, I'm preaching and I totally forgot. And then I was preaching here as well. So I'm trying to figure out like, okay, can I make this happen? Brent, can I go to your church first and I'll preach? And then, hey, can we add some more songs so I can drive back and preach
Yeah,
here
we'll
as
make
well?
that happen.
And in my dream, I'm trying to figure this out. And I actually woke up thinking that it was real.
Oh,
You know that moment you wake up and you
yes.
realize, oh, that's just a dream. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I woke up and I grabbed my phone to look at my calendar to see if it was
Oh, no.
Brent's church preaching because it was so real and I was so
Wow.
anxious.
Oh, my gosh.
And I had just double check. I almost texted him. This is like, it was probably like, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning. I almost texted him like, hey, Brent, I just want to double check. Am I supposed to be preaching for you today? And it would have been such a dumb thing to do. I was so glad I didn't. But it was so real and I was so anxious about it. And I shared it with Joe. And Joe was like, thanks a lot. Now I'm more anxious. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to put that on you now as well. But yeah, man, just like that feeling of, I don't know, I'm not where I need to be, or I'm going to let somebody
Right.
down, or I failed.
Yeah.
It kind of plays into that too. So I should cherish those moments.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
because of the anxiety, but just because of the people around us to help us.
That's so true, though. Like, I think whether it's for welcomes or closings or preaching, like Saturday night can be so stressful.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Like we talk about it in here a lot, like with whomever is the teaching person on Sunday, like when we're talking about weekend chit chat, a lot of times the teaching person is like, yeah, I didn't really do anything on Saturday because it's just like, yeah, come Saturday at about 3:00, I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing anything else until about 3:00 on Sunday because I'm just like in that mode of I can't deal. It's like shut down mode, just like quiet, can't do the things.
Yeah.
So like you're not alone, Joe.
Yeah.
You're not
Oh,
alone
yeah.
in
I
that
feel it every time.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's like a healthiness to that too, of just being like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Even like we talk about it a lot, like welcomes. I know a lot of people kind of can tune us out if they're once the welcome person kind of hits the stage. But like we put a lot of emphasis in that part of our service because we know that there are lots of new here people. And so we want them to like feel welcomed, and we want that person to be able to like kind of just like drop any sort of like expectations that people might be coming in with, or like their guard, like they probably have their guard up when they're coming into church and have some things. So we just want to like bring sort of an ease to the room. And so that person who's stepping out there and like trying to make that space welcoming feels a lot of pressure. So like you walking into that thing for the first time yesterday was a big deal. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna go out and say hey. Like you feel the pressure of that. So yeah, that's.
But I thought I would like just focus on like the sound booth or something. Don't make eye contact. And Doug, like 10 minutes before I'm going up there, Doug's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like find the people
some
that are
people.
engaged,
Yeah.
and you can feed off their energy. And sure enough, yeah, there was people in the crowd. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is
I'm
kind of
talking
fun.
to some friends.
Yeah, that's all it was. That's all it was.
Find the person who's smiling at
Yes.
you. Like, oh, I'm going to look at you the whole time.
That's
Cool,
it.
man.
And luckily, Judy's in the second service front row right
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Easy.
Right.
awesome.
And she'll talk right back at you.
Yes,
So
she
it's
will.
It's awesome. All right. Well, this week we were in week 3 of our Holy, Holy, Holy series. So it was our final week of this series. And it was all about how the holiness of God is life-changing. So before we get to the message, though, I would love to talk about some really big things that we have happening around here. There's 2 things that are life-changing. So are you guys ready?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I think so.
This is great.
The first thing that's life-changing that's happening this coming week, well, like not right now, but like the coming week, is camp.
Oh, yes, camp. That's right.
So exciting.
Yeah.
So Doug, you are in this group, the one that can talk most eloquently about what's going to be happening with camp stuff. But I think we all have camp experiences. But can
yeah.
you tell us about what's happening with camp for our kids and students and why that's going to be so life-changing and how we as a church can be praying for you guys and just what you're excited about.
Oh, yeah. So we are taking a huge group of students and kids to camp, and we're going to Word of Life Camp in New York. So it's a long bus ride, but we're very excited. And the bus rides are cool because it's a chance to build relationships on the way down there and then talk about camp on the way back. So I really like the bus ride.
Yeah.
10 hours is a long time, but it's a lot of conversations we have, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be cool. But camp itself is just such an amazing experience because I think we're pulled away from the normal life that we tend to live and the comfortable kind of areas that we tend to, I guess, just resort to. And we can see ourselves kind of set apart to something different. Almost like holy, right?
Yeah.
Holiness is to be set apart for something else. At camp, we are set apart for God. And we're pulled out of the normal way of life so that we can experience something different. And this camp is really cool, and they're very purposeful. Like some of the camp rules, like students are not allowed to have cell phones because that's something that brings them back into the normalcy of life. They want them to experience an entire week of just disconnecting from the world, from the problems and the issues that they face so that they can hear from God. And it's not running from these things, but it's just a dedicated week to listen to God speak. And we've seen students make incredible life-changing decisions because of that. Last year when we went, we had students sharing just incredible God sightings and stories of growth and challenging things that they were working through. So they're dealing with their issues in a really healthy way, and they're surrounded by friends who are encouraging them to do that. And that's camp. You're just in a unique place where you can hear from God, and you're surrounded by people who are also hearing from God.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. So
Yeah.
that when we come back home and you step back into the normal, you have this like really good vision of what God could or what God wants to do and what could happen in your life if you let him.
Yeah.
So that's the camp experience.
Yeah.
It's going to be very cool.
And how many leaders are going with you this year? And what are you guys going to be doing while you're there? Because it's a different sort of experience for the leaders than it is for the students.
It is, yeah. So for the students, they're hanging out with the Word of Life leaders, and they have like a leader per group, and they hang out with them the whole time. And their goal is to build relationships, but also make sure they're safe and answer questions they might have. So it's a really good connection. For us, we get to go down there and we get to build relationships with the leaders from Believers. So we're going to do like cool team building things. We're going to do prayer times. We're going to help our teams know what it means to lead in a sense, so that we can bring back some good stuff when we're done as well. But then we can hang out with the students also.
Yeah.
So we're still building relationships, having a good time. But a lot of the difficult camp stuff is on the Word of Life leadership.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't want to say a vacation. That sounds like too easy. Like I'm going to go to camp next year. But it's a time off, and it's a time to be refreshed for us, to listen to God, and just to build stronger relationships within our leadership teams.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that too.
That's really great. Do you guys have any fun camp stories? Did you go to camp when you were kids, teenagers?
Still waiting to get invited.
Oh, really?
next
Howdy,
year.
Joey.
I want that life change. I think you did invite me
Life change
last year.
sounds very good.
Yeah. The only camp I did, I was a theater nerd, so I did the like governor's school residency program at University of Richmond, and it was such a great experience. I had so much fun. So I just love, and that was very impactful for me just as an artist. So I love the idea that you can do that with your spiritual life too. Right? You can just kind of be isolated and focused in on something that's so important to you. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a couple of local to like not international missions camps because this was like inner city Philadelphia was one year, Atlanta one year, and stuff like that with the church growing up, and it was awesome. I loved camp.
That's awesome.
So those camps are more like heavy on the serving and stuff like that for the community.
I think we stayed at a local college campus.
Nice.
So I remember experiencing like what an actual like dining hall experience was for the first time. But then we would go into the inner city for like most of the day, come back, worship, and have large group and small group time and stuff. It was really cool. It was the first time I had experienced something like that. I was probably like 12.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool, dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
We used to go to Awana's camp. If we like memorized all the verses throughout the year, we could go to, I think they call it scholarship camp.
Yeah.
And we would go there every year. And it was very funny. I remember like, I'm going to memorize this verse so I can go to camp.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if that was the best reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me get these verses done so I can go to sweet camp at the end of the year. So yeah, that's what we did.
I was a pastor's kid, so we always went to pastor's family week. We always did that growing up. And then I always went to like junior high week, went to teen week as a kid. Like I felt like I was at camp like for 2 or 3 weeks in my life. All the time. And then when I got a little bit older, I like served and worked at camp. So yeah, I was always at camp. I loved it.
So was that experience different, like actually working at the camp? I mean, clearly it's different, but like, was it because more impactful for you in that sense?
Well, I didn't do like when I worked at camp, I didn't do like counseling stuff. I worked like in kitchen stuff.
Okay, nice.
So I did like serving, like waited tables and doing that kind of stuff. But it was super fun.
Cool.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Just because of like the relationships you built and you were part of like, just camp staff. It was just really fun.
It's got to be tough because like the people that work, especially Christian camps like that, they have dozens of groups coming in every summer.
Yeah.
And every single week they're doing something. So we get there and it's like, why are they so tired?
Yeah.
Like they've been doing this all summer long.
Doing it all summer.
Nonstop.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun, but also like exhausting in a sense.
Yeah, I over the span of like 10 years, I did theater camps with one of my best friends, and a couple of years we did like the double camp experience, and we were just like wiped out from just it was 4 weeks, so it was 2-week camps, and we were just completely wiped out because you're like building the relationships, and we produced a show with every camp that we did. So I can't imagine how it is to have so many campers coming in and building those relationships. But one of the things I find incredible is like when they reach back out to you years later and you're like, you still remember that because you were one of like 60 kids that I was with. Yeah. But it means so much in a student's life. And you keep reaping the rewards of pouring into them.
Life changing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
To show how far we've come, I remember like the second or third camp I went to was down in Florida, and my wife and I were dating at the time. And you just mentioned that all the campers next week, their phones will be locked up for a week. I had to call her on a payphone. We did not have any phone in our pocket.
Oh, man.
That was like my second or third camp.
What's that for our younger listeners?
Yeah.
I had to put a quarter in there.
What's a quarter? Change? Do you swipe your card?
Right.
That's so weird.
All right. So the second life-changing thing is something that we started this Sunday, but it's that we can invite people to our Extraordinary Nobody series that kicks off this coming Sunday. Yes. So RaChelle, can you tell us a little bit about what the invite was that we did this week, but how we can be inviting and what that looks like for this series?
Yeah, so Doug did an amazing job kicking that invite project off, but this was just an opportunity for us to welcome folks to have a seat with us and say, I saved you a seat for the extra or extraordinary. I try and say it's extra gum, like extraordinary, if we didn't make that connection. So just giving someone a pack of gum, we really are intentional about choosing invite projects that are just loving on people and making them feel seen and heard, and not trying to be like, hey, let me pull you into this thing you might have this preconceived notions about, but just to say, I'm here for you. That's what Jesus does for us. So in the true fashion of that, we gave out these packs of extra gum. And one of the most amazing things that Doug pointed out yesterday was, in this, we did not plan this. All of the packs of gum had a little note that said, these are 12? Is it 12? 15, yeah. It's like, that doesn't sound 15 opportunities to connect with someone. So whether you give away a whole pack or you give away a pack and then one of the packs you give away pieces, just letting that be a chance to start a conversation with someone, to say, hey, want some gum? Like, here, I know we just ate lunch, especially Mexican. I love eating gum after Mexican. I don't know if that's a thing with everybody, but after I have Mexican, good, I'm like, it just goes together so well. I like it better than dessert, a piece of minty gum. But yeah, just giving out a piece of gum and just saying, hey, how's your day going? And letting that open up a conversation to say, I have a seat for you here at Believers, a place where you'll be loved.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's so personal doing it that way.
Yes.
I love the whole I saved you a seat approach. I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
If somebody were to come to me and say, like, come to my church, cool, will I ever see you there? Maybe not,
right.
because it's a big church, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I saved you a seat. I know when I show up, there's going to be a person there waiting for me.
Yes.
And that's so very inviting, clearly, but just very personal, very cool.
Yeah. And so last week, I had like 4 opportunities where I was just in conversation. Well, just because that's how I am. I think that's part of why I'm in this role. But I'm just like chatting with people. There were some women at the Y, women at the store, just different folks I'm connecting with. And I did not have any invite projects with me, and I was so frustrated with myself. So even as we do these things, like, I encourage those of you who attend Believers, like, always have an invite card on you, because you never know when you're going to have that connection and that conversation where someone just wants to know that there's a seat for them somewhere. They want to belong.
Exactly.
So I stuffed my purse now, and I'm restocked.
There you go.
That's awesome. So it's funny, for some reason I was calling the series Extraordinary Nobodies.
Yeah.
And even my slide was misspelled that. And when I practiced my message, I was saying extraordinary nobodies. And I didn't find out it was wrong until Sunday on stage.
Extraordinary.
And run through. Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah. And then at the very end of the second service, I got to the last next step, and it was in Save Somebody's Seat for the extraordinary nobodies. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know how to say this word. And I think I almost said it. And I looked at you in the audience, and you're laughing. I was like, oh no, she's the only one who knows the dilemma right now. I don't know how to say this word. And I'm going to choose one, and it's probably going to be the wrong one. And I can't remember what I said, but
yeah.
It's
Either
such a
one
weird
works.
moment. I just wanted to walk off the stage. I'm like, number 4, read it for yourself. And just get off the stage as quick as I could.
Either one works. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this series, because I think it's going to be life-changing. I think all of our series are life-changing because we're pointing people to Jesus.
Yeah.
And Jesus is life-changing. But yeah, the Extraordinary Nobodies series is just going to be this awesome look at all of these characters in the Bible that God uses to point people to himself, and in some extraordinary ways. And we can like often overlook their stories. They're kind of like, some of them are like these really hidden gems in Scripture, and just be able to kind of dig into those a little bit over the summer and find out how even in our own stories, we're able to use things like a small, simple pack of gum to be able to say, like, come sit with me. And that little thing can change someone's life. Yeah. And even in next week's message, like, you're going to hear the story of someone who was invited to come to Believers. And there's been this ripple effect through his life. Yeah. And you're not going to want to miss it. You're going to want to hear his story, because it has that. It's this ripple effect that you too can have on people's lives. So I'm really excited about getting into all of these stories that will be mimicked in our lives too. So I hope you'll make plans to be here. But let's talk about this Sunday's message. And Doug, to open up the message, you talked about some brand logos. So for our listeners, can you just kind of retell what that illustration was all about? And then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So I was trying to show how sometimes with a logo, it shows you what the company's name is, but a good logo will show you who they are as well. So what they're all about. And good logos there's usually like imagery or something in there that kind of communicates what's unique about them. So I was thinking about that, and I really wanted to look at holiness as something that's unique or set apart. So these logos are unique. And what sets apart Amazon from every other big online retailer? And they want you to think, when they look at their logo, they have everything from A to Z, and the arrow points from the A to the Z.
Yeah.
And through the logo, they communicate, this is who we are, but this is who we are.
Right.
And we have everything you could want.
Yeah.
That's what makes them unique. That's what sets them apart from everybody else. And I really love that in a good logo. It'll make one company rise to the top, and another company will be forgettable.
Yeah.
And we're thinking about Jesus. There are a lot of people who look at Jesus and they kind of just lump him in with all these other important historical figures. He was a great teacher. He influenced culture. He was a moral person. We should all be good neighbors. These are good things.
Yeah.
But what sets him apart from everybody else? He has to be more than just those things. If he's God, then he's elevated to the top.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that connection was there. Like
Yeah.
this underlying purpose of what sets this apart from everything else is important. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Jesus. Like once you know who he is, you can't unknow that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It changes everything about you.
Yeah, so you showed us that with the Amazon thing and then with the FedEx thing.
Yeah.
So did you
Yeah.
guys know that before Doug pointed it out? Did you know that about the two logos?
I knew the Amazon because Doug came and asked for examples of this a while back when you were planning this message.
I tested it with you
and
and
I
Megan.
did.
Yeah.
I remembered seeing the Amazon. I think some people in the crowd may have seen the Amazon, but when you did FedEx, everybody was like, whoa.
That's
You could hear it in the crowd.
Yeah.
As soon as you pointed that arrow.
So I just learned about the Amazon one like a handful of weeks ago. I think when I brought it to you guys, I learned that day, and I was like, this is wild. I always thought it was just a smile. I had no idea it was the A to Z. That's genius.
Yes.
Such a good
Yeah,
logo.
it is.
Shell, did you
Yeah.
know about it?
No, I didn't know about either of them. And that day opened up like a total rabbit hole for me. I was like, I have to know every logo. And the one that tripped me out the most, I think, was the Baskin Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, there's a 31 flavors. Because
Yeah.
there's a 3 and a 1 in the B
Yes.
and R. That just still,
Right.
I think
Right.
it's brilliant.
Yeah. So, yeah, Doug, you mentioned like just some other like aha moments. You were even talking about some songs and stuff like you in your intro. So, have you guys experienced any other aha moments like what Doug was describing? Doug, you can answer too,
Yeah.
but like, have there been some of those aha moments in your life? And it can be like even with Jesus, like those kinds of things, but yeah.
I have one. I told Doug this when he came to me asking, "Hey, are
Okay.
these examples good? Do you have any other examples?" But it's not very. It's not a happy one. Like all of them
Okay.
aren't. All these aha moments aren't happy.
Yeah.
A TikTok ruined one of my favorite movies.
Oh boy.
Remember the Titans.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I'm not going to get into the details
Yeah.
because I don't want to ruin it because that is like my favorite movie. Favorite movie growing up. I still think to this day we should watch this like once a year just because of where we're at in culture and everything. This movie is so impactful. And it was just some nuances of like the years and where they were when they were actually filming it, and the actual football team was not really this, it was that, and all this. And I was like, this is awful.
Yeah. But like, I wonder how accurate the TikTok reel was. Maybe the
maybe.
movie is super
Yeah.
accurate, and the TikTok is just
Right.
like, I just don't like that.
Yeah.
I love that, Doug. That's right.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
be
That's
positive.
So we're going to
about
keep it too.
Yeah.
Your favorite movie is still good.
Oh my goodness, the aha. On a just lighthearted level, I think one of the biggest aha moments I had was that you can roll your baby's onesie up over their arms, and then they won't mess with the stuff while you're changing them. I was like, what? Of course, I learned this right when Kai's getting out of
Oh,
onesie.
wow.
So I know you just roll it up over their arms, and then it holds it right there, and the little
man.
flap.
Yes.
Yeah. In case you're gonna have
Okay.
any more. It
That's
was
pretty
brilliant.
genius. Yeah.
But on a different note, I think just an aha moment that I have regularly is that God wants us to be our authentic selves. And in that, like, we're able to reach other people. I don't know if other people struggle with that, but I can see myself wanting to do the things like other people are doing the things. And then I'm not reaching the people that I'm called to reach. And I know I have realized that even a lot. We recently have been doing some stuff with our team and just looking at some of our uniquenesses and how we can just best serve our church and our community with how we are all individually wired. And that has been like so encouraging for me and mind changing, because when I want to be like, I got to do this, I got to go over here and be this person. And Jesus is like, that's not what I'm calling you to do. Right. And so that's been like, that's a regular aha moment for me. It's like, just be who he's called you to be.
I love that. I think a number of years ago, we were a part of the like racial collective.
Hampton Road City Collective.
Yeah, City Collective. Yeah. Thank you. And one of the pastors there was talking in one of our conversations about the 1 Corinthians 13 passage where it's talking about all the parts of the body and how we often talk about it in the context of like a singular church and the members of the church and how we're all parts of the body. And so he was saying, like, that's how we often will talk about it in our churches. He was like, probably all of you pastors here have used that in your churches many times and to talk to your members about where they're serving and all of that. But he was addressing it more as the church as a whole and how so many, like there are many churches, even in Hampton Roads, and not all of them have necessarily been called to be a part of like the Hampton Roads City Collective because, you know, if all of us were only focused on the racial reconciliation piece of our city, then there would be a lot of other things that weren't getting done within our cities. Yeah. And so just like there's members of the church as a whole, we've all of these churches have been called to do different things within the bigger body of churches, you know? Yeah. And I thought, like, that's such a great illustration of the bigger church, you know, the church. Like, God has also equipped different churches to be a part of different things. And I think that goes a little bit to what you're saying, RaChelle. Like, we kind of have gone through that as a church ourselves over the recent years, just kind of refining, like, we can't as a church say yes to all of the amazing things that we could be a part of, you know. We've had to say, like, okay, but as a church, like, God is really calling us to meet the needs of our community in these few ways. Yeah. And there are lots of great partners that we could partner with and lots of great organizations and a lot of great needs that we could meet. Yeah. But as a church, we're just going to kind of refine it to these things. So, I love that. And, we still have a lot of amazing people here that are a part of a lot of other things, which is fabulous. And you guys should do all of the things that God's calling you to do. But as a church, we might just be a little bit more refined than some of those things.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. All right. So you also walked us through Saul's story.
Oh, yeah.
I loved how you talked about that.
When I was practicing it, I kept saying Paul, Saul, and just like mixing it up. So I figured that's the best way to handle it for me. When I read it, it's going to say Saul. When I say it, I hope I say Paul. Yeah. And hopefully that's okay with everybody.
No, and I love that you just like brought, like, even if it seemed like unclear, like you just like addressed it. Like, this is the deal. This is who
two
he
names.
is.
Yeah. I have two names. If somebody called me Ray, I'd be like, I guess that's me.
Nate,
that's my name.
Your middle name's Ray?
LaRae. Everyone calls me Ray.
That's amazing. Yeah. So, so like, it's weird. I remember growing up, I really liked the middle name Ray because I had an uncle whose name was Ray and he was super cool. Yeah. Or I'm like a second uncle twice removed, like somehow connected with my family. Yeah. And growing up, I was like, oh, man, I hate the name Doug. I want people to call me Ray. And it never worked. I never like was Doug and I became Ray. Yeah. So,
I will never call you Doug again.
Dude, start calling me Ray and see what
Pastor
happens.
Ray.
Yeah, it's not even Raymond. It's just Ray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Nate leaned over to me, like, as you were talking about that, he was like, oh, this would be such a good time for him to talk about being Vug Dance.
Oh, yeah. There's this other name that I go by.
I was like, I think that would just confuse it even more.
But I wish you would have texted me. Like, I would have changed it for second service. That'd be great.
So, can you just kind of set the stage a little bit of what's going on in that part of Acts that you were talking us through? And then I would love for us to just kind of talk about, this kind of ties to what we were just talking about, but more in line with this part of Acts, when our perspective changes because we viewed something in a totally different way.
Yeah, so Saul at the time, he's persecuting Christians, and he's doing so in a way that he's trying to show the higher ups. It's like he's a good follower of God. Like, I am faithful. I'm doing the right thing. I want to help you guys. So he's very zealous and he's very enthusiastic about doing this. So he's an extremely hard worker. And you see Paul take that same kind of mentality when he understands who Jesus is. And it becomes like one of the hardest workers in like growing God's family through Christ. So it's amazing. He's just like a hard working dude. He wants to see things done. And he's trying to honor God in the way that he thinks he's doing it. He's arresting Christians. He's having them thrown in jail. He's watching them killed in the streets. Stephen is killed and stoned because of his faith. And Saul is there to watch that happen. These things are taking place, and he thinks he's doing right. And he's on the road to Damascus. And as he's on the road, a light shines from heaven. He's blinded. And in like the beginning, you can tell he knows it's a heavenly thing happening. He says, Lord, who are you, Lord? And Lord there, like implying a king, a ruler, or something. So it's logical to think this is an angel or God or something, but this is unique and this is different and this is powerful and I need to figure out what's going on. You're persecuting me. And he's like, oh no, I didn't think I was persecuting you, God. I'm so sorry. What are you talking about? Who are you? And he says, I'm Jesus. In that moment, like, I think for me, I can breeze past that. Oh, cool. It's Jesus. I knew that already. I know the end of the story. I know what happens. But like, I try to put myself in his shoes. And if I was doing something that I knew was right, I'm serving God. I'm doing everything to the best of my ability. And then Jesus one day would speak in my life and say, no, this is not okay. Man, like the heart sinking feeling. And that's the thing. That's what I said it because I couldn't think of any else way to put it. Like this heart sinking feeling of like, oh no. And the humility and the moment of like humiliation even. Like, oh no, this isn't good at all. And what would I do in that situation? I think I would isolate, like realistically. I would be so ashamed and guilty. I would isolate and I'd become a hermit. I'd move in the woods and just go hiking for the rest of my life. It'd be so tough.
I think the first thing you do is change your name. That's probably a good logical first step.
I'm out of here. I'm Bug Dance now, so you know
I'm now Ray. I don't know of this Doug you speak of.
But it would be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And he takes that in stride, right? And it says he goes back and he can see again after a while if you keep reading the story. And he starts preaching the name of Jesus. Wow. And he starts growing the church. And it seems like he's able to move on, not quickly in an easy way, but he's able to like, I truly want to serve God. This is really what I want to do. Yeah. And now that I know what truth is, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to like move my energy in this new direction. And I really respect that about him.
And there must have been some really like some persistence on his part too, because you mentioned it yesterday, like the people's immediate response was like, wait a second. This was the guy that was just doing all of this. Now he's preaching the word of God.
Yeah.
So it must have been very confusing for the people that he was first encountering anyway.
Yeah. Could you imagine being Paul? Let's just call him Paul again because I'm going to go back and forth. And you show up at like a gathering and you know the first thing people are thinking about you is like, you're the guy who split up my family.
Yeah.
You killed my uncle because of his faith.
Right.
Yep.
You threw this dude in jail that was my best friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like knowing that's what people are thinking about you and that feeling of like, I have to defend myself. But then knowing, nope, I don't have to defend myself. I'm following Jesus now. I'm going to let Jesus speak for himself and I'm going to do the best I can and not be worried about what people think about you.
Yep.
We were having this conversation on Sunday, man. We are people pleasers.
Yeah.
And I think that would like wreck me inside just because of my personality.
Yeah.
I'd be so concerned of what people thought about me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I would go over in the other direction.
Yeah, and I was and you think too, in like today's culture, how that would play out. Like cancel culture wouldn't allow for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like cancel culture in the Christian world would not allow for that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have, I think even as Christians, maybe you won't agree with this. Like, do you think we have the ability to extend that sort of grace to Christians like we do to non-Christians?
Ooh. I think it's way more difficult because, like, I see Christians arguing over things like we worship differently. You guys are wrong in the way that you do church. You're wrong in the way that you hold a service. You're wrong in the way that you do all of this. So if we can't be loving and kind in the way that we just operate, how could we be loving and kind in the way that we do larger, more significant things and pursue Jesus in that way? So yeah, I think we're hypercritical in other Christians, and we can be super kind to somebody who's far from Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one to wrestle with.
Yeah.
Because, someone like that's our calling, right? To reach the unchurched and someone far from Jesus. Yeah, the grace level, like going into that conversation, feels higher and stuff. And what you've done in the past, you can be, reborn into this new life with Him. And yes, that's a great question.
One of the perspective changes that I've had along that line was just how I looked at the church and people in it. So I had a season where I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want anything to do with these people. They're hypocrites, which I still hear a lot as, from someone outside of the church as a critique, and just seeing lots of hypocrites. And then the perspective change that happened for me was people are messy and just we won't cancel outside of the church. Then what about inside? People have their same flaws and, character defects and journeys to grow on, whether you call yourself a follower of Jesus or not. And then having that grace that you're talking about for people and really drew me back into the church. And I even love thinking about it in relation to this story about Paul, is how would I have looked at him? Would I've been like,
Right.
yeah, you're just a messy person too. I'm so glad that you found Jesus. Welcome. I'm excited to learn about him right next to you. That kind of perspective shift, I think, can just be so impactful, so life-changing.
Yeah.
That's so good.
That's what I think, because, when you think about how he was before his encounter with Jesus, his thought process of, he thought he was doing everything right.
Yeah.
And so, even for those in the church that would say that they're followers of Jesus, that they think that they're doing everything right, that their views are right, and that they're following Jesus, but maybe they're just a little bit different than your views of what following Jesus are. And so, do we have grace for one another? Can we hold those things? Can we hold those views and still try to come together? Or are we just can we not even say well, let's try to work together and see if we can hold space for both things for a little bit until Jesus, through the power of the Holy Spirit, makes it clear. And allow for that to happen.
And that's good, because I think it's what a family does, right?
Yeah.
A family does that.
Right.
It allows that space for people to learn and grow. And there's a good chance through that process I'm going to change my mind on some things. At least I hope I do. Because by no means do I understand everything, right? I'm going to change my mind on a lot of things, and I hope the other person is willing to do that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's the hard process in that. It's funny. So in the extraordinary nobodies, I said it wrong on purpose, everybody. I'm teaching on that very thing, how to resolve not a sin issue in somebody's life, hey, you sin against me, let's find reconciliation, but how do we just disagree and disagree well? And I don't know what I'm going to say yet, but I think that's going to be it. Creating that space where I can share with you my thoughts and you can receive it well, and I have to be willing to change, and the other person has to be willing to change, because that's just good. And I think if both people are so, I think, stuck in their ways, I'm not changing, are you changing? I'm not changing either, then there's division and there's no empathy in that. So
I think right off the bat, it's important to set your expectations there, because we know that as a church, this is going to bring challenges. And yet we wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this church.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they would have kicked Paul out?
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yeah.
deal with this guy.
Yeah.
This is a big struggle. We're not ready for this.
But just
Yeah.
That would have been horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so Jerry is getting me into Survivor. He was like,
Awesome.
I think you will love it because I love Love Is Blind and The Circle. And he was like, all the things you like about this stuff, they have it in the show. So I started watching it, and already I'm super hooked. I'm like, what is happening? But
You got 57 seasons to watch. So.
I know. There's plenty to choose from. But in this episode, there's this guy, Coach, who apparently has been on multiple seasons. This is kind of way back. And he is a follower of Jesus. And there's another guy who's like not trustworthy, but he's also a follower of Jesus. So they're at very like different places on their faith journey. And there's like some betrayal and all this stuff. And I'm like getting so flustered. I'm like, I can't believe this guy's claiming to be a follower of Jesus and he's doing this and that. And this is what's wrong with the world today. And the guy, the coach guy, he's just like so calm. And he's like, it's fine. Like, you have to grow. You have to be in your space in your journey. I'm still going to give him a chance. And I was like, how do I have that kind of humility? And when I look at just people's stories and what we're bringing to the table. And am I prepared to love them and accept them well? Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. So 2 Corinthians 5, you talked us through that after you kind of walked through Paul's story in Acts. And I loved this part of your message because it's really what we're all called to. And you even said, as you walked us through, I think it was verse 18, you told us, like, if you're taking notes, this is the part I want you to write.
It's so
This is
important.
what I want you to highlight. And I loved that you were so like, this is what I want you to do right here. You said, highlight, become a new person.
Yeah.
And so that is the power of Jesus. That is the life-changing part of his holiness, right? It's that we become new because of him. And so in that newness, what he's calling us to is to become reconcilers. And that's really what we're talking about right now, is that he changes us, we become new people. And through that, like, he's reconciled us, but now we are to become reconcilers.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Like, what does that look like, practically speaking?
Yeah, so I think it has to start with the way that Paul starts the whole passage, like changing the way that we view people. If I look at somebody from a human point of view, then even my attempts to witness to them can be very human focused as well. Yeah. Then it's more about like, I want to earn spiritual cred. I got rid of all my invite cards. Cool. Like, pat on the back. Way to go, Doug.
Yeah.
And am I looking at things from purely a human point of view, even when it comes to like doing something spiritual? And if that doesn't change my own heart, like, there can still be fruit in that. That person might still come to church. I might meet Jesus, and that's awesome. But my heart towards them won't be any different. And that's not okay. So for me, being a new person means I change my perspective on that person, and I see them with such a level of value and significance that my love for them is like true and authentic. And I want them to know Jesus, not so that I can have like another story to tell,
Right.
or I can post about it on Instagram. Like, I want them to know Jesus because I love them, and I know that God loves them, and that has to be the change. And I think when that changes, it just makes sense. Like, we become reconcilers, not because it's an obligation. And I love the way that Paul says, this task has been given to me, like this job, and we can see that as a burden. Like, oh, this task, do this thing, clean your room, make dinner. No, it's like, it's this amazing realization of who they are, and I want them to know God as well.
Like an opportunity.
An opportunity.
Yeah,
And it becomes
yeah.
like, it's just a natural part of life now. When I have a conversation with somebody, in the back of my mind, it's not, I have to do this so I can get rid of an invite card. It's like, I want this person to know Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I think it's
So
that
good.
important.
Right.
And just every conversation, I hope at least, I'm still like growing in this
Yeah.
for sure. But we become that. And that's
Right.
amazing.
Why do you guys think that this is so important for us to have a passion for in this cultural moment for us?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so one of the characteristics that sticks out to me is the humility that it takes to live this way. Like, even with Paul, like the humility to say, yeah, I was doing this thing, but this is where I'm going. And to see that in each other also. So I think, like you were talking about with the cancel culture, we forget that we used to think a way and we don't think the same way because we have life experiences.
Yeah, that's so good.
We have these encounters, and that's rings true for everyone else around us. But I think we live in a culture that longs to judge on these moments, these pictures, these reels, and then like cancel and reject people based on that, versus saying this is a full human experience and this person is becoming new just like I'm becoming new. I am fascinated by the fact that within 7 to 10 years, all of our cells literally become new in our bodies. And even daily, there are like billions of them that are becoming rejuvenated. Like God put newness, being these new creatures, in our very DNA, in our structure of how our bodies operate. Yep. And so to recognize that, how do we look at someone in our culture today and say, you know what, I know this is like all this is what happened yesterday, but today I see you for who you are today and who Jesus is transforming you into. And I think in our culture, we just don't, we don't live in that kind of culture. I even think about like the climate we're in right now, in this election year. We just don't want to see people as new people daily giving chances and listening and hearing. And I think that it's important, because if we want to move towards a more healing, loving community, society, to be the light, we have to look at people the way that Jesus looks at them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Doug, can you talk a little bit? I think like we can be dismissive almost of what Paul's telling this church in Corinth, because we're like, yeah, that sounds great, Paul. You don't even know what we're dealing with today. Yeah. But can you just, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, can we take Paul's words to heart for us today? Like, is what he's telling them relevant? How are we relatable to this church in Corinth?
Yeah, I hope it's relatable, right? Because I can see aspects of what he's saying in my own life, and I think it really is. If I give myself permission to see Jesus differently, if he's God, then it demands much more from me, and I can't treat it casually. I can't just treat it in a way that's like comfortable. If Jesus really is God, it changes the way that I interact with people. It has to. So when Paul tells them, like, you're a new person, there's significance there. And I think with today's culture, and myself included, like with our struggle with knowing who we are and sense of identity, and just struggling with like what other people say about us, talking about cancel culture and all that, what people say about us, that sense of identity and purpose is so critical now, more so than ever. I know they struggled with it back then. I think today, with as immediate as everything is, I think the struggle is way more real. A student can feel good about themselves one day and something happen online and feel completely depressed and isolated and distant just from a single post that they didn't even do it with themselves. And just it's getting exponentially more difficult, even with AI and all that weird stuff. We can get into that later if y'all want. But man, it's just, I think this is becoming a legit issue. Who are we, and who is Jesus, and why does this matter? So if Jesus is God, then it means that I can be a new person. And if I am a new person, then I can let go of this old way of living and I can embrace the new. And that's so powerful. I want that for others as well. And I have to become a reconciler. And that's who I am. I'm a person that brings people together. I'm a peacemaker. I care about that person more so than winning the argument or trying to keep my distance from them or try to follow my own way. The reconciliation is such an important part of that. And that's what separates Jesus from every other teacher.
Yep.
If Jesus is God, then we can be reconciled to God, and we can help others do that as well.
Yeah.
He has to be more than just a teacher. He's way more than just a moral person. He's significantly more than family tradition. That's the big one, right? The family tradition, like, let's do this just because we've always done it. No, Jesus is God, and there's power in that, and that changes us.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful today, just like it was thousands of years ago.
Yeah. God is holy.
God is holy. Holy, holy, holy.
That'll preach, Ray.
That'll preach, dude.
All right. Thanks for being here, everybody. We hope that you'll join us for our new series starting this Sunday, and we will be on campus at 9 or 10:45, or you can always catch us on YouTube at 1 o'clock. Go be love.